Welcome everyone, I'm Staff Sergeant Ryan Brewer, and this is Staff Sergeant Kevin Paul, and we're the creators of MilitaryTrumpetJobs.com. Today we're joined by the U.S. Army Band's Audition Coordinator for the Southeast region, Sergeant First Class Jeremy Morrison, and Staff Sergeant Nicole Daley of the 82nd Airborne Division Band and Chorus. Thank you for being here. Jeremy and Nicole, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your career in the Army?
Sure, Ryan. I'm an Army Band's trumpet player. Have been for my entire career. I've been in the Army for about 17 years, starting off with duty stations in Fort Knox, Kentucky, Fort Campbell, Kentucky and Tennessee, as well as Fort Gordon in Georgia. I've been to Yongsan, Korea, as well as Fort Lee, Virginia, and now here at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. Throughout that time, I've had a great opportunity to play for just all kinds of events, as well as for the President of the United States, and to include, just a whole lot of funerals, different things that we do in the Army Band, the opportunity to play in different ensembles like concert band, marching band, brass quintet, rock band, salsa band, just a whole lot of different opportunities to continue to expand my trumpet playing career.
So my name is Nicole Daley. I've been in the Army almost 10 years. I grew up in the Tampa, Florida area, did my undergrad at University of South Florida, and then I went to grad school at Indiana University and studied with John Rommel. Right after grad school is when I joined the Army. My first duty station was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Spent about 3.5 years there, and then I got to move to Germany to be in the band in Simbach, Germany. I spent 3 years in Germany, and it was amazing. And then I actually came back to Fort Bragg to go to a different band, but the same base. And sometime in the next 6 to 9 months, I will be headed to Maryland to also be a band liaison like Jeremy is, but for the Northeast District. So some of my Army experiences have included getting to be a featured soloist with concert band accompaniment in a castle at Heidelberg, Germany. So that was kind of amazing. Also, while in Germany, I got to play some amazing D-Day ceremonies just to be a part of something just that meaningful was very special, and I will always remember that. Stateside, I've gotten to play for President Barack Obama, so that was awesome. And then I also just get to do a lot of playing on the civilian side stateside. I play in a couple local orchestras and church gigs and things like that. So that's been basically my Army career thus far.
Yeah, I guess we also saw you with an Army brass quintet featured at the Women's Brass Conference. It sounded great. Thanks so much for joining us. We've gotten a lot of questions about Army regional bands. Can you tell us what kind of music's on the list and what the audition process is?
Yeah, Kevin, that'd be great. Our audition process is very similar to a normal, audition process for military bands. We have a list of 16 excerpts that there's 6 different categories. We ask that you choose one excerpt from each category. The categories include solo repertoire, concert excerpts, we have commercial excerpts, we have marches and things of that nature. So we are looking for well-rounded musicians. Once you have gotten to our audition our audition, we once again we have you do that. Then 24 hours prior to the audition, one of our coordinators, like myself, would send you an additional 6 excerpts spanning those same categories that we would have you do what we call quickly prepare. So it provides you with the opportunity to not just sight read, but to do the more realistic idea of take something, prepare it for 24 hours, and then go ahead and play it for us. Gives us a real good idea of how well you can do those types of things in a real world environment. Once that audition process has taken place, you go up on our selection board. So once you've passed the audition, we have a board that meets every month and takes a look at all the people that have auditioned for the positions that we have available. And then they take the top scores from each list. So it really behooves you to take the time, prepare, and rehearse those excerpts so that you can give us your best opportunity, because we do have a very competitive process and a lot of people that are auditioning on a regular basis throughout the country.
And it's called an AMPA, right? Can you tell us what that stands for and how the scoring works real quick?
Sure. So the AMPA is an Army Music Proficiency Assessment, and there are six different categories on that audition, and it from technique to tone to articulations, and then also the quickly prepared section. Like I said, there's six different sections, and each one has a specific rubric that goes with each section. You get 0 to 6 points for each section, and based on the wording of the rubric and how you play, it's very easy for us to assess where you are and give you a score that's pretty consistent across the field.
How would the audition process change because of the COVID situation? You're taking auditions right now, and I see advertisements all over social media about how auditions are happening actually right now.
Yeah, Kevin, that's correct. So right now we are doing remote video auditions. So once you've contacted us and given us your information and we've gone through the process to get there, we are doing an audition where you set up a video camera, an iPad, whatever works best for your situation. And then you give us a call on the telephone. And then we basically conduct the audition over the telephone as if we would be there in the room with you. And then after the audition is over, we go ahead and have you save that video and upload it to an unlisted YouTube link, and then send us the link so that we can then take and assess your audition and give it a score prior to the board that month.
Great. And so once a candidate has been given a score and accepted into the Army Bands program, what happens? I mean, they go to basic training, and then what?
Okay, Ryan. So the next thing that happens on our process is after they go to 10 weeks of basic training, just like all the other bands, we do have them go to 10 weeks of the Army School of Music in Virginia Beach, Virginia. That process is basically to get you back on your horn for 10 weeks, get you an introduction into how the Army does a lot of different things with our different small ensembles, gets you into one of those, gets you back into the swing of things musically, and then as well as learn how to march for our marching style, which is one of the big parts of the School of Music as well. And then we get you out to your band in 10 weeks.
Nikki, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so a little bit more with that. This school at the Army School of Music, it's a 10-week course. And when you're there, it's kind of like that stepping stone between basic training and your next band. So there's a lot more freedoms. You are still in training, but instead of being, learning just your general Army stuff, you are learning Army band things. So like Jeremy said, learning how to march, because it's not quite the same as what you may or may not have done in high school. Learning the different bugle calls, since we're talking about trumpet players, bugle calls are a big part of what we do a lot. A lot of times we just think of taps, but we have a lot of other bugle calls that we use for ceremonies and such. And also just learning kind of how an Army regional band works. So when you get to a band, it's not just a concert band and that's it. We are broken down into smaller musical groups, like Jeremy was saying earlier, a brass quintet, a woodwind quintet, a rock band, a salsa band, a brass band, those type of things. And while you're at the Army School of Music, it's the same. You get broken down into those groups. You have these small group rehearsals. And so your day is filled with small group rehearsals, concert band rehearsals, marching band, and then still, a little bit of the Army training to make sure that you haven't lost it all. And then from there, you get sent to your band. So like we actually have just recently got 2 new people, a tuba player and a euphonium player that came from the School of Music. And, we integrate you. It's a very it's a band life. So we're very friendly, and we kind of make sure that the newer people, so the people coming straight from the School of Music, we try and get them in a musical group as quickly as possible, because that's what they're there for. We want to make sure we're getting them in a group to play. And then we let them feel out the band for a few months. Generally, when you're at a band, you have secondary duties outside of your instrument, like maybe working in the supply shop, which is the place where you check out your instruments. When you get here right from the School of Music, we're not trying to overload you with all of those extra duties. So you'll have a little bit of time to see how the band works, see what the normal day-to-day is, and then you start learning the intricacies of each band, because as we know, one band to the next is not always the same, whether you're talking high school, college, civilian. We all have our idiosyncrasies. So that's basically it from audition to your first band.
It's very similar actually to the premier band and the process. Besides AIT, when you first get to a premier band, it's the same kind of process. And it sounds like the School of Music is just sort of it's an induction process into the Army Band's program, but it's very similar to what the conservatory would kind of be. We got a lot
Kevin, a part of that as well is, I think, being that we only have 40 musicians at each band, it provides you with a non-stress environment to go ahead and get back on your horn for those 10 weeks, so that when you get to your band, you can be expected to jump right in.
Great. A bunch of questions that we received. One of them was, how long do you stay at a duty station? Can you be deployed with the regional bands? And if so, for how long and how many times?
So right now, the norm for staying at a duty station is about 3 years. Nothing is exact, but roughly it's about 3 years. Especially when you go overseas, those ones are more exact, and that is almost on the dot 3 years. So our overseas assignments are Germany, Japan, Korea. Actually, Hawaii and Alaska are considered overseas because they're not part of the continental USA. As far as deployment, I'll let Jeremy talk about his experience, but I have been in for almost 10 years and I've never been deployed. So Jeremy, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I did deploy back in 2009, 2010 timeframe. Really at the height of the war. Our bands have, in the more recent times, have not been deploying nearly like they have before. I can't say that it is not something that could happen, but it has been much less likely over the last 5 to 7 years. I will say this, that right now, most of the bands that have deployed, which I can't even really remember which ones have been in the recent, have been doing things more like a 3-month trip with a small ensemble, and then they switch out with another one. The Army's deployments have shrunk for everyone to the point of it's only a 9-month tour if they do deploy someone. And like I said, the bands are only doing usually about 3 months at a time. So it is possible, but usually unlikely at this point. And when they do go, our mission is to play music. So when we do go down field, what we do is we go to these different little forward operating bases, different places where the soldiers haven't had much opportunity to see much of anything but what their mission has been. And we get to go in and, provide some rock band or provide some a small ensemble to be able just to cut into that time and allow them to have some relief from the monotony of everyday life that they have as they're out there deployed. So it is actually a very fulfilling situation as well when you're out there doing that.
Yeah, that sounds like a super important mission. Now let's talk about the financial aspects of the job. So can you tell us about the pay grade, the benefits, and any additional perks of serving in an Army regional band right now?
So for coming into a regional band, you come in as a pay grade of E4, which is also called a specialist. And, all of our pay is public knowledge. You can look it up and see exactly what anybody makes based on their rank and based on their years in service. So with that being said, what that also means is not only do you come in already as an E4 and instead of an E1, like some people joining the regular Army, with those pay grades, there's also guaranteed raises, which means no matter what, even if you don't get promoted, after 2 years, you get a pay bump. After 4 years, you get a pay bump. After 6 years, you get a pay bump. So that's something that not everyone necessarily knows about or really thinks about. So that's just the salary. When you just look at that black and white numbers, you might not think too much of it, but you have to remember that also includes 30 days of paid vacation. That also includes either a housing allotment if you are married, or the fact that you're going to be living in the barracks, which costs you $0. So your living expense as far as rent and electricity and utilities is $0. And also it includes health insurance, which is, a big topic right now. It's having this sort of health coverage, which includes dental, includes vision, includes anything that you can think of, is, it's kind of a big deal right now. it's not something to be taken for granted. And obviously these are all the same benefits of joining one of the premier bands too. And with some of those benefits, you start to realize how much of an opportunity there is financially with this job when you start looking at those details instead of just looking at the black and white number of salary. Remember, we also get a stipend for food. Every month we get a stipend for food. If you come in and want to earn a bachelor's degree if you don't already have one, or earn a master's degree if you don't already have one, we have tuition assistance available. So while you're in the Army, you can be taking classes that the Army is paying for. If you already have your master's, you can use the post 9/11 GI Bill and start work on a doctoral degree, whether you're in the Army or wait until you get out. Those are just some of the benefits. Jeremy, do you want to add anything more to that?
Absolutely. I think one of the great things that you mentioned is those educational benefits. I know I just finished my master's degree last month, and the Army paid for the entire thing. The only thing I had to pay for was books. And once again, you're also going to have your post 9/11 GI Bill, which is a huge benefit that takes you that you can actually pass on to your family if you don't feel the need to use it. I personally have passed it on to my two oldest kids. So they've already got the first 2 years of their education paid for whenever they decide to get into that point. Another great benefit that we have that I think Nikki's already talked a little bit about is just the travel across the country and around the world. And we have we have 20 bands that are strategically located around the country and overseas. Like I said, we have a band in Germany, in Belgium, in Hawaii, in Alaska, in Korea, and in Japan. A lot of great places to visit. A lot of great cultural opportunities to see, whether it be in different parts of this country or different places in the world. It's a great opportunity. It does happen quite regularly. I mean, everyone, like you said, we're going to move every 3 years, and to be able to go and see those different places and meet new people, as well as get to meet different local populations. I mean, the difference between playing in Georgia and the difference between playing in Washington State and playing in Texas and playing in Oklahoma or New York State. And there's just a lot of great opportunities to meet different types of people and really get to interact with the country as a whole, as well as trumpet players. I know that a big job you guys have in DC is playing, for funerals and memorials over at the cemetery in Arlington. But we also do funerals throughout the country. We do have the opportunity to go out and provide them with their honors. That is really a great helpful thing that is unique to trumpet players in the Army.
I'll also add on to that, with the overseas thing that sometimes people don't think about, is not only are you getting to live overseas, you are not paying any money to move overseas, which is a huge financial benefit. So when I moved to Germany, I didn't pay any movers. I didn't pay to have my car shipped. I didn't pay for my flight over there. That was all covered by the Army. So the Army moved me, all of my furniture, my car, and had me on a flight to Germany. And when I think about that, the idea that I can live in this very, new place that I don't know that I would have ever really done before the Army, and the Army paid for that to happen, it's kind of, it blows my mind. And then when you're over there, obviously, travel, when you're in Germany or Belgium, travel in and around Europe is that much more accessible because, again, you're already there because the Army is paying you to do your job there. And some of those jobs that are over there, within the job, you travel for work. So when I was stationed in Germany, I spent 1 month living in Scotland because our band was performing in the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. So for a month, I got paid to live in Scotland and play my trumpet every night except for Sundays, to sold out crowds at this international military tattoo. And that's just one thing. I mean, I went to Italy several times. I went to Kosovo. We went to Latvia, Lithuania, France, Netherlands. I mean, it was just all over. And that was just for work. Plus going to Spain and Portugal and Greece, for leisure travel. Those type of things, we kind of forget about how much of a financial benefit it is that you already live there because the Army is having you live there. And once you're over there, the Army also realizes that sometimes the cost of living might be a little bit different. So you also get a stipend over there. It's called cost of living allowance, or COLA. So the Army gives you a little bit of extra money to account for maybe the currency exchange rate, or the fact that maybe utilities is a little bit more over there, or that maybe food is a little bit more expensive. So there's a lot of these hidden financial gems that nobody really thinks about until they're in that situation and they realize, what a great deal it really is.
Yeah, I remember shipping my car one time for a tour, and it was a tour to, like, we started in Arizona, and I split it with another band member, but it was like $1,100, and it was very shady. Like, the guy that took our car, he almost left without, like, with our money, and, like, kept the car and didn't unload it. It was a nightmare almost. So yeah, the fact that the Army will take care of things like that's amazing.
Well, one more thing to also remember, Ryan, is that, once you've gotten into the regional bands, we have people on a regular basis that continue auditioning for the special bands as they go through. And we've had several people, even in the most recent time, that we've had 2 trumpet players in the last year or so that have won positions at West Point. So it does happen as well, and commands are very open to giving you the time to prepare and do what you can. And you're already a known entity. You can pass the PT test. You can do all these different things that you guys do that we also do. And it provides that ability to continue on with moving forward with your career.
That's a great point. Real quick, before you leave, we want to provide all of you with some information regarding what we've talked about. Nikki, if you want to share the screen real quick. Boom.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
So as we said earlier, Ryan and I are the creators of MilitaryTrumpetJobs.com, and we are currently in the process of recording all of the standard band excerpts as a reference for all of you. For even more information on regional band vacancies, click the link in the caption.
And please follow or subscribe to our content on Facebook, which is @MilitaryTrumpetJobs, Instagram @MilitaryTrumpetJobs, Twitter @MilTrumpetJobs. We ran out of characters to get the whole thing in there. Or our YouTube channel, Military Trumpet Jobs, so you can always be up to date anytime a new audition list comes out. We hope that these videos help all of you with your audition journeys. Kevin and I have both been in the position of having to take auditions, and it's tough, and we don't want any of you to make the same mistakes that we made along the way.
If you have any questions or anything you want to know about military bands, please reach out to us on social media platforms and respond to you as soon as we can. We've really enjoyed your questions and all of your responses so far. That's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and happy practicing.
Woo! Woo! I always do that at the end.
I know.
We're not doing that here.
So I said, platforms.
Oh my God.
Sorry, dude. I don't know what the thing that you want to know about military plans. But plans? Why would I say that's going on here, man?
There you go.
Now my boobs look big if I do that. Shoot, don't. Are you still recording?
We're recording the whole thing, dude.